What's up? I'm Vaughn, and I get cool things and make tutorial videos on them. This is one of my cool things right here, which is a 3D printer. So, since there's a 3D printer in this video, this is obviously going to be a 3D printer tutorial. So, there's lots of things that you should know about 3D printers. We're just going to go over the basics of everything, should you happen to decide to get one. And you can get one if you have about $2,500 sitting around. Alright, so a few things about 3D printers. What they're good for is they're good to print off objects, and you can print off any types of objects. Here's some example stuff that I've printed off, which I've printed off a horse statue for my sister, the Eiffel Tower, some other cities, some other buildings in Paris, some bracelet thing. This is actually a box from my Arduino, a light base to light things up, an eagle. These things, which we'll get to those things in a second. Those things are actually pretty important. That's pretty important. This is pretty important. All that is canola oil. So let's see the basics of 3D printing. You have your 3D printing filament. You need to make sure you have something like this, which is basically a filament guard. Where I got these from is there's a website called Tinkercad that allows you to it allows you to design stuff in 3D. So that's what this is right here, Tinkercad. And I designed those, and I just measured them and mounted them here. These are necessary because you really need to keep this filament in line. And what we're testing right now is basically to see how our print does with these. One of the problems I was having is in mid-print, my print would stop, filament would stop coming out. And I figured out it was because the way that my filament was getting delivered to the actual extruder, which is right here, was not really good. So basically what that meant is the extruder, this motor right here, that basically feeds the filament down into the extruder. All it is a gear. All it is a gear right there that basically clamps down on the filament, pushes against the filament, and this thing pulls it down in there. So it wasn't pulling before. I didn't have these things in, which I just printed off, which are those things down there that I said are important. Before it was just this sitting in there, and because of that it wasn't able to spin really easy. So hopefully I've fixed that. And before I didn't have these guards either. I just kind of had it hanging in there, and that caused my extruder to jam a couple times. So a few things you should keep in mind when you're 3D printing is make sure that you have a good temperature to whatever type of filament. Yeah, that's actually working really good now. That thing's just able to pull it. Yep. That thing's just able to pull it like that. Easy. That's 5. So that's 5,000 or 500 millimeters of plastic that's extruded out without a problem, and it's been able just to pull that. So that's one of the good things about a 3D printer. If you do own a 3D printer, not only can you print out virtually anything you want, like for example, I'm moving at the end of this weekend, and I don't necessarily have any dishes or anything, but I do have a 3D printer, so I'm going to print out my bowls, my plates, my cups, my spoons and my forks and my knives. And since it's all ABS or PLA plastic, they're all microwavable. They're all microwave safe. You can actually put food in them, cook food in them. They're no different than the bowls that you would get, or the plates that you would get at the store. So now I don't actually need them. Alright, I think what that means. Alright, another thing that you need to know when you do your print I know there's another one of those right here. There we go. When you do your print, a good thing, you need to make sure that you have your bed hot enough. Now, you should always go hotter, and you shouldn't look at the box really. You should use what's on the box of your filament as a guide. And what you should do is actually play with the temperature and find the optimal temperature that your filament is able to stick and adhere to your plate really good. And that temperature is going to vary, and what you want to look for is you just want to look in your print, start off with the recommended temperature and continue to go up from there. And there's an ideal temperature for my bed in this extruder right now. The ideal temperature is about 113 degrees is where I want to keep it, which will allow the filament to stick and not come up but not be too gooey and allow everything else to dry. So you need to make sure that you have good temperature for your extruder, a good temperature for your bed, a good delivery system, because that's one of the most important things, is a good delivery system. You want to make sure that your bed's completely level. That's another very key thing. If your bed's not level, you're going to really have a screwy print. So we're going to go ahead and print this off, which is just a dinosaur, if you can't tell. There's his head right there, his tail, legs, arms, spine, back. Like I said, we're building a dinosaur. So right now we're just going to print it, and then we're going to build it off. So this was a really bad tutorial, but whatever. I was just excited. Take a break for a second.
Scoop out boiled potato and submerge in ice water. Wait 5 seconds. Remove potato from its cool bath and gently pull at both ends. The skin will give and slide right off. One spud in the buff at your service.
Alright. Now, we're going to watch a good 3D print. And a good 3D print, in order to get good 3D prints, the first thing that you want to do is, when you first get your printer, you want to spend a lot of time just watching it and paying attention to it. You want to get very familiar with your software, with your printing software, and how you can actually change the settings that are optimal for your particular system. Because the software is generic, but it does provide a way to actually interface with your hardware no matter what it is. So you want to make sure that you get a good first layer, okay? Like right now, if you look, that was not good. I don't know what that was. But whatever that was, it wasn't good. Probably should start taping the other way, I guess. I don't know. That was a pretty big jump. So one thing that you can do, if you can remember where your stuff is at, you can go ahead and edit some stuff in real time to make your print better, if you're paying attention, if you're watching it. So I charge $10 an hour for my printer to be working. So that's what just happened. Alright, we want to restart this print. So we want to restart that print. Basically, we want to come steal something that we're gonna usually have around, which is just a bread tie, and we just want to take this bread tie. And I want to tie up this thing right here. I can do that, it looks like. By coming right down in here, there's a hole. Now, I got lucky enough that there's a hole right here in my hardware, in my particular 3D printer. If it wasn't for that hole, then you would still have to come up with some ingenious way to hook this together right here. Hopefully in your 3D printer, you don't have that issue. Now, when you're going to take this up, just this first layer of plastic, and then we're actually going to restart. Now, like I said, this is one of the keys. This is one of the keys to having a quality print, is just paying attention to your printer here, especially at the beginning of the print. Come check on it periodically, because you can always, if things start messing up, you can always stop, slice, restart. But if you don't catch anything because you're not paying attention, well, then there's no way of restarting. So right now it looks pretty good. We're going to see if doesn't look like we're coming up back here. That's good. So I usually just watch the first layer. That's usually about 10 minutes. Watch the first layer. As long as the first layer looks like everything is going good. And now that I've got a good filament delivery system and I'm comfortable with my filament spitting out the way that it needs to, yeah, I think everything's going to be good this print. You can tell where you're unlevel by looking at the patterns in your filament. So, like I said, never think it's too much time to go in and re-level your bed and just double check your bed. It's good in between prints. You may not have to do it every single print if you're printing a lot, but it's good in between prints to home in your Z-axis and make sure that that axis is nice and homed in and where it needs to be, and make sure your bed's as level as you can get it. A little bit of tape on the bed like you see that I've put, that really, it's up to your preference. It really helps your print stick to your bed, and it helps you get it off. The only thing is, if you leave these lines of glass like you see that I've left here, then it's going to leave kind of like a slight discoloration in your print, where these lines where the glass is are actually going to show up like a high gloss, where everything else will be kind of like a flat color. And that's just because it really melts and bonds like glass on that glass, whereas on the tape, when it bonds, it still has the pores and that roughness of the tape. So obviously you could use that as some type of art if you want, where you can just put a design in tape with a stencil and then the rest outlined in tape, and you're going to leave a nice gloss layer. I think we're done. This is going to take 1 hour and 27 minutes. I don't know if I got that much time on the camera. Yeah, 2 hours and 37 minutes. Only got 5 minutes on the battery though. Do not even have a place to plug in the battery, so you're not going to get to watch the whole print. I guess I'll turn you on. I guess I'll turn you on again at the end of the print. Alright? And then you can see the end. Maybe I'll try to think of some real actual useful stuff for you during this tutorial. So usually with me, I just wait till you ask questions and then do that.